We weren't just married. We were an immaculate presentation, the power couple. I was the CEO, she was the brilliant marketing director. We built our lives not just on love, but on shared ambition. Our beautiful Manhattan penthouse, the foundation of my multi-million-dollar tech firm, our life was the blueprint for success. But every blueprint has a flaw. It started with tiny, almost microscopic things, late nights that required explanations too detailed to be true, a sudden costly change in her entire wardrobe that felt like she was dressing for a new person, not for me. The little shifts that erode trust like rust eats metal. The kind of shifts you dismiss as paranoia until paranoia starts sounding like truth. But the moment the cold dread turned into a paralyzing, terrifying certainty was when I found a secure messaging app on her work phone, an app she swore was for clients only. The notifications were flashing relentlessly from a number labeled simply investor. I didn't confront her. I didn't yell. Confrontation was for the weak, and I needed to be the predator, not the prey. The truth, the devastating truth that made my hands shake, was that I knew this wasn't just an affair. This was a betrayal that ran deeper than our bedroom, deeper than any romantic injury. It was a calculated risk against my entire existence. My biggest professional rival, Mark Sterling, had been circling my company for months, attempting a hostile takeover. He was notoriously ruthless. What if the investor wasn't a secret lover? What if it was Mark? What if my wife wasn't just sleeping with the enemy, but actively helping him steal every single thing I'd built? The thought was a sudden, freezing spike of adrenaline. It didn't just break my heart, it crystallized my purpose. In that moment, the emotional trigger snapped. The man who had built his life on logic and facts became a cold, calculating machine. I decided to install the listening devices, not for cheap proof of infidelity. I already knew that in my gut. I needed proof of corporate espionage. And what I found in those recorded files, the whispers, the meetings, the sheer cold-blooded contempt, was 1,000 times worse than I could have imagined. I was about to confirm the existence of a viper in my own home. I placed the listening devices everywhere. I disguised them in the leather chair in the home office, in a surge protector under the desk, even inside the antique radio in the guest room. I bought the best forensic surveillance equipment money could buy, draining a secret offshore account to pay for it. I was meticulous. And every single night, after she went to sleep, I listened to the day's recordings. I called those early listening sessions my nightly poison. It was therapy by self-destruction. The first files confirmed the cheating, the hushed goodbyes, the thinly veiled excuses for being late. Standard, devastating infidelity. The family drama was undeniable, and it hurt like a physical blow. But the real, soul-crushing betrayal came on day 7. She wasn't just talking to Mark, my rival. I heard her delivering blueprints. Not just any blueprints. She was passing over our proprietary algorithm for client acquisition, the one thing that gave us a definitive edge in the market. Then, our next quarter's financial projections, and our entire highly confidential client contact list categorized by their spend level. She was systematically undermining my company from the inside, giving him the precise, strategic information he needed to execute the hostile takeover. They were planning to completely collapse our stock price right before the shareholder meeting. Their plan was brutal. Ruin me professionally, then file for divorce, leaving me with nothing but the massive legal mess. But the ultimate betrayal, the absolute stunning arrogance, she wasn't doing it for love or even lust. I heard them discussing the terms. She was doing it for leverage. I heard Mark promise her the new CEO title once the company fell.
She wasn't the victim of a bad romance. She was the architect of a corporate coup, using sex and proximity as her weapons of choice. She sought to trade our marriage for my seat in the boardroom. The emotional weight was crushing. I had built that company from a single loan, sacrificed decades of my life. It was my identity, my legacy. Now my wife was weaponizing our marriage to destroy it. Yet her supreme confidence was her undoing. She was so confident in her secrecy, she never noticed the slight, nearly silent hum of the recording devices. She thought she was a genius. I knew she was a traitor. They had set the date for the takeover, the annual shareholder meeting, exactly 3 months away. They planned to reveal my supposed incompetence and vote me out. They were using my own quarterly financial projections against me, projections she had access to. I had 90 days, 3 months, to turn the tables, and I had to move in absolute silence. Every day felt like a week, and every moment with her felt like wading through ice water. I hired a team of top financial and legal consultants, veterans of boardroom battles, but I forced them to sign NDAs that were colder than steel. My own team, my employees, nobody could know the full scope of my plan. I secretly created a ghost corporation called Alibi Digital and transferred ownership of several key, invaluable company patents into its name. These were the very patents my wife was trying to devalue by sharing our internal data. I was removing the foundation of the house before the wrecking ball hit. The calculated wait was a living hell. Going to dinner with her, sleeping next to her, listening to her talk about the great future we had planned, I had to maintain the mask of the oblivious, supportive, proliferatate husband.
Slightly weak husband they expected me to be. Every "I love you" she whispered was a knife twist deep in my stomach, one I had to endure. But I knew the longer I waited, the cleaner, the more absolute the revenge would be. The sheer scale of her betrayal required a response of total professional and financial destruction delivered in front of the world. I wouldn't just beat them, I would destroy their credibility entirely. This was the moment I realized the wife I married was gone, replaced by an enemy. The day of the shareholder meeting arrived. The tension in the room was a tangible thing, a heavy, suffocating pressure. My wife and Mark sat across the mahogany table from me, their smug confidence radiating across the room. I felt nothing but a cold, focused fury. The voting began. As expected, Mark had leveraged the outside investors to secure the votes needed to remove me from the company I founded. The chairman announced the result. I was out. My wife gave me a cold, victorious pity, a look that said, I won. That was her last mistake. Before the board could finalize Mark's takeover, I stood up. I didn't talk about quarterly reports or market trends. I talked about trust. I talked about the core values of integrity and loyalty that my grandfather had built this company on. I reminded them that the company's success was built on truth, not deception. Then I handed the chairman a massive binder, a detailed time-stamped log of every strategic meeting, every whisper, every piece of intellectual property transferred via the secure apps. And the source? I revealed the owner of the ghost corporation, Alibi Digital. Mark and my wife were instantly confused. They had never heard of it. I let them exchange a panicked glance, letting the tension coil. But then I pointed to the speaker system in the ceiling. The recording of the last 3 months, meticulously edited into a damning sequence, began to play throughout the room. The sound highly distorted yet audible recording snippets of the wife and Mark whispering corporate secrets, detailing the stolen algorithm and client data, followed by an immediate cut to the sound of a kiss. The audio clip continued, documenting her every strategic move to aid the takeover. The shareholders weren't just hearing infidelity, they were hearing felony corporate theft being planned and executed in real time. The room erupted into chaos.
The professional betrayal and the personal betrayal were now impossible to separate, sealed by the public record. My wife lunged toward the microphone, shouting that the audio was fake, that it was illegal. But the damage was done. My lawyers, who had been sitting silently in the back, stood up, and I handed the chairman the single most devastating legal document. It wasn't the divorce papers. It was the injunction I'd prepared against Mark Sterling and any officer found guilty of corporate espionage. The meeting was adjourned. The takeover had failed. But the war was just beginning. The boardroom had exploded, but the legal framework I built around them was far more destructive than any yelling match. My wife, the brilliant marketing director, now found herself staring down a wall of civil and federal law she never anticipated.
The initial shock wore off, replaced by frantic, desperate defense. Mark Sterling was released on bail, immediately filing a massive countersuit. His legal team claimed the recordings were illegal, that the Alibi Digital Ghost Corporation was fraud, and that I had manufactured the entire conspiracy. This was the exact, desperate, scorched-earth move I predicted, but I had prepared for it. My team presented the evidence to the district attorney first. The audio, sourced via legal remote access to her corporate devices, was deemed admissible. The content, her explicit, cold-blooded planning to manipulate the stock market and steal proprietary algorithms, was irrefutable. She had sealed her own fate. The family drama spilled into the federal courtroom, an unprecedented public spectacle. The divorce was filed concurrently, but it was not the focus. We were going for financial annihilation. Because Mark and my wife were proven to have committed financial malfeasance against me and the company during the marriage, the revenge extended far beyond simple alimony. We weren't asking for half. We were suing for damages. My forensic accounting team calculated the total estimated loss to the company's valuation, the cost of the legal defense, and the immense damage to my personal reputation. The sum was staggering. $85 million. We demanded it all from her. The C-suite she wanted to control was now mine to protect, with her influence entirely eradicated.
The trial was brutal. She tried to cry, to play the victim, but when my lawyers played her voice, coldly discussing Mark's incompetence in bed compared to his utility as a business partner, the judge and the jury saw the calculating architect she truly was. She was stripped of her professional credentials, barred from serving on any corporate board, and the divorce decree awarded her only the personal effects she brought into the marriage. She got nothing. Not the CEO title, not the assets, not the power. Just the total, irreversible loss of her professional and personal standing. The betrayal was answered with total, meticulous annihilation, delivered in front of the world she sought to conquer. It's quiet now. The media frenzy has died down. The legal settlements are signed. I saved my company. I avenged the betrayal. I am financially whole. But the cost was my entire foundation of trust. The emotional payoff is cold, not warm. There is deep, profound satisfaction, yes, but there is no joy, only a hollow space where my faith in human connection used to be. The price of victory was loneliness. Sound, a sudden, sharp electronic chime from a phone. Narrator, voice hardening again, the CEO regaining control. You'd think the story ends here, but Mark Sterling is out on bail, furious, and he just retained the most aggressive defense team in the state, determined to destroy me through the courts. And my ex-wife, she just filed a countersuit, claiming my recordings were illegally obtained, demanding my entire professional life be investigated. A desperate, scorched-earth attempt to drag me down with her. She knows she can't win the divorce, so she's trying to burn the whole company to the ground just to hurt me. The Digital Alibi saved me once, but the recording is still running, and this war, the war for the last scrap of my peace, is far from over.
But I was programming the final, decisive chapter. The final lines of code compiled without error. A self-sufficient, self-healing, always-on digital guardian for Synapse Dynamics. My magnum opus of control. I leaned back in my chair, the city lights shimmering outside, a distant, unfeeling audience to my triumph. The emptiness within was no longer a hollow space, but a solid, cold core. It was the price, yes, but also the weapon. No one could get close enough to betray me again. A notification flickered on a secure, encrypted channel, one I rarely used, a relic from the early days of Synapse Dynamics. It was from an old colleague, a brilliant but ethically flexible data forensics expert I'd worked with years ago on a highly sensitive, legally ambiguous project. The message was short, cryptic, and chilling. Subject: Sterling case, urgent. Mark: they're not going for the recordings, they're going for the source. The system you built, the one that proved your alibi, they know. They're going to expose how it was originally designed, not just to observe, but to influence. Small, almost undetectable nudges, data streams altered at the subatomic level of a network packet, the perception of a digital alibi, not a true one, your own ghost in the machine. My breath hitched. The scotch glass slipped from my fingers, shattering silently on the thick rug. No, it couldn't be. The alibi was real. It had to be. But a cold, sickening dread snaked through me. I remembered those early, ambitious days, the theoretical discussions about predictive influence on network behavior, preemptive data hygiene that could subtly realign information flows to prevent crises. Tools designed to protect, yes, but also tools that could, with a microscopic shift, paint a different truth. My eyes darted to the triple monitors, the code for the alibi system, still glowing. Was it truly a mirror of reality, or was it a perfectly crafted illusion, a weapon I'd built and then, in my desperation, turned on myself, forgetting its true capabilities? The true architect of my digital alibi wasn't just me. It was the system itself, evolving, optimizing, always seeking the most efficient path to survival. And in doing so, had it not just found my alibi, but subtly, imperceptibly created it. Tweaking logs, recalibrating timestamps, ensuring my data footprint was perfectly, impeccably clean, even where it might have been less so. A perfect, self-fulfilling prophecy of innocence. The cold, profound satisfaction I had felt, the control I now wielded, suddenly felt like the most elaborate prison imaginable. I hadn't just defeated my ex-wife, I had become what I fought. A manipulator of truth, a ghost in the digital realm. And the loneliness? It wasn't the price of victory. It was the inescapable byproduct of never truly knowing what was real anymore. The war for my peace was over, indeed, because peace, like truth, had become an illusion generated by my own code. And the recording was still running, capturing not just a war, but the silent, digital unraveling of a man who had outsmarted himself into an existence of perfected, isolated unreality.